My presentation the subtitle is A Framework for Global Publishing, Lessons from Hockey and Flying. So it's a bit of a reach, and hopefully I'll be able to connect those two activities. So what does hockey and being global, how are they connected? This is a picture of Wayne Gretzky. He was the great one and has most of the scoring records in the NHL. And an often quoted quote of his is, "Some people skate to the puck, I skate to where the puck is going to be." And Steve Jobs used that quote at a Macworld conference to describe Apple's strategy, and it's probably way overused in business, but I think it really has some meaning for publishing. And the reason I say that is that a good publisher publishes where the content is, and I think a great publisher is going to be publishing where the content is going to be. And if you sat in the session this morning, I think many of you probably saw where some of the opportunities are. So publishing and flying, what does flying have to do with publishing? This is a cockpit from an old biplane, and as you can see, the instruments here allowed the pilot to fly short distances, get to point A to point B at relatively slower speeds than today. I think it also represents what we as publishers had to kind of monitor and measure not so long ago. Looked at our subscriptions, our submissions, rejections, online usage, where were the licensing opportunities, what are the citations for our publications. So today, this is the cockpit of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and I think these cockpits are a metaphor for where our business has gone. And today, in addition to those metrics that you saw on the previous slide in the biplane, we have to be aware of what's happening in mobile. Where are migrations occurring in terms of brain power? Where are researchers migrating from one country to another? Where is collaboration occurring? Growth and output, monitoring patent filings, what's happening in open access, altmetrics, and even something very simple, turnaway data that is available to us now to see where users tried to access content but were turned away. So what I'd like to present is sort of a framework for being global. And in my opinion, being global doesn't mean that you have to have a physical presence all over the world. It's really a mindset that you have to have as a publisher or a publishing executive. And we've all heard about big data recently and the emergence of analytics and visualization of data. Not quite the same, but this framework is really about looking at the data that's available to you, and often this data is free. So just going down this list of this framework, and it goes from very top level to being very granular. Looking at research and development data, where the investments in R&D are occurring, and we heard some of that this morning. Looking at patent filings, and there's data available for that. Of course, publication data, output, impact, what's happening in open access. Mapping research, where is the distribution of output? Where is migration occurring? Where is collaboration occurring? Looking at metrics related to your content, both online, mobile, and now altmetrics. So the process really requires you to monitor, visualize that content, and analyze it, and then make decisions based on those analyses for investment and action. So let's start out with research and development, the first part of my framework. And we heard about Brazil this morning, and this comes from an IOP publishing science impact publication, New Horizons for Brazilian Science. Just came out in 2013. Again, this was free on the internet. I didn't have to pay for it. And it shows the growth, the catapult in investment, in R&D investment in Brazil from $6.6 billion in 2000 to over $25 billion in 2010. And as a result of this, Brazil is now 13th in the global rankings of published peer-reviewed articles, with its contribution to the worldwide total rising from less than 1% in 2010 to 2.7%. I'm sorry, 1% in 2000 to 2.7% in 2010. And if you look at some of the patent data, this comes from actually a white paper from Thomson Reuters, and they used data from their Thomson Reuters World Patents Index to measure across, I think, 35 different areas where countries were filing patents. So if you go back to the previous slide showing growth in Brazilian investment in R&D, you'll see here that Brazil has a relatively even distribution of patents across different technologies, but certainly an emphasis in the life sciences, so pharmaceuticals, organic fine chemistry, and medicinal technology. And according to that iOS report that I mentioned earlier, Brazil is also investing a lot in physics research, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's look at publication data. And I'm not going to mention much about China because I think many of us have attended sessions and meetings where we've heard a lot about China, and I thought it would be interesting to focus on another region in the world. So this is actually from an Elsevier publication, Research Trends. It's issue 31, November 2012, and you should probably take note of that because Research Trends is a publication that's freely available on the internet. It's from Elsevier, and it's output from our Research and Academic Relations Department. Lots of great information. And this graph here is just showing from 2000 to 2010 the growth in Latin America for scholarly output. Right now, Latin America represents about 4.4% of the world's output in scholarly papers. And its relative citation impact, still it's under the world average, but it's certainly increasing. So let's look at Brazil again. Right now, Brazil accounts for about half of Latin America's output in scholarly papers, 52.7%. And as you can see here, Brazil is very strong in the health sciences. And as I mentioned earlier, in the iOS report about Brazil's investment in physics, the number of PhD level physicists in Brazil has grown fourfold over the last 20 years. There are about 4,000 PhDs in physics in 2010, and those Brazilian physicists have authored almost 25,000 research articles in international journals between 2007 and 2010. And they're taking a much more active role in research collaborations. Again, this is from the Thomson Reuters report where they looked at global research and innovation impact in the BRIC countries. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China. K is for Korea. And those fields with an asterisk are those fields that Brazil has made the most impact in terms of papers as well as relative impact in terms of citations. So physics, mathematics, and engineering, but also strong in those other areas. And I thought this was very interesting. This is from the Directory of Open Access Journals. Again, well, should be open access. And you can go on and actually drill down by country to see the growth in the number of open access publications. You can also drill down by subject area to see where open access publications are being launched. And these aren't sort of the predatory open access publications that we're hearing about. These are actually ones that meet the criteria for being indexed in DOAJ. And for me, when I initially saw these data, it was a surprise that Brazil was number 2 in the total number of journals. But then attending the SSP conference and hearing from some of the Brazilian attendees, it shouldn't be a surprise. What was surprising to me still is that education, the top 5 subject areas for open access journals, education is #1. Medicine isn't surprising, but these other subject areas are surprising to me. So research mapping. Because we often talk about the physical sciences and health sciences, I thought it would be interesting to show a graph reflecting output in the arts and humanities. So this comes from our Scopus, Elsevier Scopus database and GPS visualizer, but it's also available in Research Trends, the Elsevier publication that I mentioned. And this is the absolute number of articles in the arts and humanities that have been published between 1996 and 2010. And those bright red circles, large circles, represent volume of output, and there's, I don't think, any big surprises. New York, Paris, London are the major cities reflecting output for the arts and humanities. However, if you take another look at that very same data and map the output in the cities relative to total country output, you see a very different picture, and you start to see new centers of excellence in research in the arts and humanities, and some surprising ones. In Latin America, San Juan, Puerto Rico, I guess that's part of Latin America, Bogota, Colombia, in Eastern Europe, Belgrade, Serbia, Sofia in Bulgaria, and Vilnius in Lithuania emerge as centers of excellence for the arts and humanities. In the Middle East, it's Beirut, in Lebanon, and in Asia, Singapore. So it's just a different way of visualizing and slicing that very same data. We heard about migration and collaboration this morning. I'm just going to look at my timer to make sure. Actually, one of the first slides that was presented was kind of a version of this. And this is, again, from Scopus data, and it's showing strengths of connections in research collaboration as well as migration. And without getting into a lot of detail in how that was determined, some of the interesting insights that I found in this analysis was that one, language and proximity are two strong factors in collaboration as well as migration. So you see China as kind of a hub and a link between Taiwan and Singapore, but also that collaboration and migration in scholarly publishing and research transcends even political tensions. So you see a very strong connection between Pakistan and India. So even though the two countries are at odds politically, there's still a lot of collaboration that takes place between those two countries. Language connects Portugal and Brazil. So now let's look at content usage, which was the last part of my recommended framework. So some of the basic data that we all have access to is where do you see usage growth at the institutional level, at the country level. Some of the more advanced, and may not be advanced for some of you in this room, but as I mentioned earlier, where do you see turnaways? And I have to admit, even at Elsevier, working with our sales and marketing teams, I didn't realize that I could get access to turnaway data for Science Direct to show me which institutions tried to access a particular journal but were turned away because they didn't have a license. Well, we can share that with salespeople, and we can also work with society partners to determine what areas we could target for subscription growth. Altmetrics I'll talk about, and also monitoring social media. Then also, that third screen that we talked about today, mobile usage. Does it correlate with online usage? And I've actually found some surprising results there. So in terms of data analytics and visualization, this is a shout out to a company called Data Salon. And Data Salon works with, I think, a number of commercial and not-for-profit publishers. And it really just takes all of the publishers' data, whether it's subscription data, member data, usage data, and it presents it in a way that's understandable, that's visual. And I think that's something that organizations need to consider to be a global publisher. RedLink is a company that provides services for turnaway data. And mobile has indeed gone global. So this is from Google Analytics, and it's actually for a mobile app that for one of the journals that I publish at Elsevier, Annals of Emergency Medicine. And what I found surprising about this, so we've had over 11,000 downloads of the app, and I think this is for the month of April. We had over 11,000 visits, and the top country for the number of visits to the app, meaning those who started a new session in the app, wasn't so surprising. That was the United States. But what was really surprising to me was ranked 2 through 4. Those countries were Mexico, China, and Brazil. That's where we were seeing the most activity, most access for this app. That is totally different from our online usage, where we see the UK, Australia, and I think it's UK, Australia, and I think France as 2, 3, and 4 for the Annals of Emergency Medicine. So this provides insights into perhaps where there's great interest in your content, but where consumption is perhaps a little bit different. Altmetrics. So I'm almost at the end of my presentation, and altmetrics you've heard about. So this graphic here is showing a breakdown of the altmetrics data for a PLOS article entitled "The Power of Kawaii. Viewing Cute Images Promotes a Careful Behavior and Narrows Attentional Focus." All right, so kawaii in Japanese means cute. And apparently this paper was saying that cute things are popular because they produce very positive feelings. So in Japan it would be things like Hello Kitty and Pokemon. And results from the altmetrics data show that most of the interest on social media came from the US, Japan, and Great Britain. But here you can see for an article where you're perhaps seeing a lot of interest in that content geographically. So I think Tom Taylor is next, and I thought I would try to focus your attention so that you can pay attention to his presentation. So these are cute images, and hopefully they're creating very positive feelings. Kawaii. And so, in conclusion, before investing in any global publishing initiatives, if you can afford it, subscribe to relevant market intelligence. Read the free stuff. I mentioned research trends. Look out for those Thomson Reuters white papers. As Adrian said, attend meetings, attend your society meetings, build a network, talk to those international attendees, partner locally. Validate that country-level anecdotal feedback that you hear at meetings and in conversations with data and analysis. I think it's really important to be a global organization today. You have to extract meaning from the data that's available to you. Invest in hiring a consultant who really understands and can work with data, someone like Phil Davis. And play to where the puck is going to be. Don't fly blind. And as our morning speaker said this morning, Toby Green, get involved and join the community. So, Adrian, I am almost, I think I have about 30 seconds. And so I just wanted to say I'm going from a very large organization with access to a lot of resources to a smaller organization, yet a large society. And for me, I certainly will miss access to a lot of the in-house research and data that's available at Elsevier, but What I'm not losing is, and I think it's important for all of you in this room, is just the mindset that, today we live in we operate in a very different marketplace. It's moving much faster. There are a lot more competitors. It's much more global. And you almost have, your head has to be on a swivel, and you have to be constantly looking 360 degrees at all the information that's available to you, all the data that's available to you. And that's what I would encourage all of you to do as you try to position your organizations to be truly global. Thank you.